Welcome. If your knees feel stiff when you stand, your hands complain when you open a jar, or your hips need a few careful steps before the day begins, it is easy to believe there must be one food that repairs what time has changed. There is not. The National Institute on Aging says osteoarthritis happens as the tissues cushioning the ends of bones break down over time. Food does not rebuild that tissue, but the pattern on your plate still matters for nutrition, body weight, and the health that lets you keep moving. Tonight we will separate that useful truth from the promises that go too far. Before we begin, this AI-generated presenter is a persona, not a real or licensed physician. If you have diagnosed osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, gout, kidney disease, a food allergy, or take warfarin or another medicine that changes what you can safely eat, use the plan from your own clinician. A hot, suddenly swollen joint, fever with joint pain, a new injury, or an inability to bear weight needs medical assessment. This video is general education about ordinary foods. It is not diagnosis or treatment. Here is the fact that should guide this entire conversation. The National Institute on Aging describes osteoarthritis as the most common form of arthritis among older adults and one of the most common causes of physical disability in adults. It most often affects hands, knees, hips, feet, the lower back, and the neck. Those are not abstract places. They are the joints involved when you button a shirt, rise from a chair, turn to look behind you, carry groceries, or walk to the mailbox. The same federal guidance is equally direct about the evidence boundary. Osteoarthritis cannot be reversed. Mainstream management focuses on movement, weight control when appropriate, medicines, and sometimes surgery. The American College of Rheumatology makes the same practical point. The goal is to reduce pain and improve function. And exercise is central because stronger muscles support movement around the joint. So why discuss food at all? Because an eating pattern can help you meet nutrient needs, replace foods that make weight management harder, and support the heart and muscles that allow activity. That is quieter than a promise about cartilage, but it is honest and useful. We will count down 6 foods. Number 1 contains the long-chain omega-3 fats people most often connect with joints, but the evidence is more limited and more specific than most headlines admit. Stay with me through all 6, because understanding that limitation may save you from spending money on a claim that was never established. Tell me your age in the comments and name the joint that changes how you move most. Hands, knees, hips, feet, back, or something else. One word is enough. Before I tell you how to open the guide, one boundary matters. This is not an arthritis program, and it does not replace an examination, prescribed treatment, physical therapy, or an eating plan designed for a medical condition. It collects general habits for food, movement, sleep, and healthy aging. Use it only as education, and let your own clinician's instructions take priority whenever the two are not the same. And in just a moment, a code will appear on your screen. Scan it with your phone, and it will open the 90-Year Blueprint, a free guide to ordinary food, movement, sleep, and healthy aging. It is a gift. There's nothing else being offered here. Save it, read it at your own pace, and bring any change that affects a diagnosed condition to the clinician who knows your history. Now let us set the rules for this list. First, none of these foods is a treatment for arthritis. A nutrient may participate in normal bone metabolism, cell membranes, or a healthy dietary pattern without repairing a damaged joint. Mechanism is not the same as a clinical outcome. Second, rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis are not interchangeable. Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune inflammatory disease. Osteoarthritis involves changes in cartilage and other joint tissues over time. Evidence from one condition cannot simply be moved into the other. Third, the practical value comes from substitution and pattern. Berries matter more when they replace a highly processed dessert. Olive oil matters as a replacement for a fat higher in saturated fat, not as extra calories poured over an unchanged diet. Beans matter as part of a meal, not as a powder promising a result. For each food, we will name the nutrient or mechanism, state what the source actually supports, state what it does not prove, and finish with one realistic way to put it on the plate. Number 6 begins in the fruit aisle. Number 6 is berries, especially blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries. The mechanism here is not a direct repair mechanism. Berries bring water, fiber, vitamin C, and plant pigments inside a whole food. The current dietary guidelines for Americans emphasize whole, nutrient-dense foods, including fruit, as the foundation of an eating pattern. That matters because joint health does not sit apart from the rest of the body. The food pattern that supports healthy weight and cardiovascular health also supports the ability to stay active. The NIH Office of Dietary Supplements gives us one useful, concrete example. Its vitamin K table lists about 14 micrograms of vitamin K in half a cup of raw blueberries. That is a modest amount, not a therapeutic dose. Vitamin K participates in proteins involved in bone metabolism and blood clotting. This does not mean blueberries treat arthritis, strengthen cartilage, or remove pain. It means they contribute nutrients inside a varied diet. Berries are also practical as a substitution. A bowl of berries with plain yogurt or oats can replace a pastry or candy without requiring a special product. That swap changes the entire food, not just one nutrient. You get whole fruit and fiber instead of a food built mainly from refined flour, added sugar, and fat. Be careful with the word antioxidant. It describes chemistry, not a guaranteed feeling in a joint. A colorful food can contain antioxidant compounds without producing a measurable change in your symptoms. If a headline turns that chemistry into a promise about pain, it has crossed beyond the evidence in this brief. How to add berries. Use a half cup of fresh or frozen berries with breakfast, or thaw frozen berries into plain yogurt. Frozen fruit is fine. Choose the version you will actually use, and if you manage blood sugar, fit the portion into the plan you already follow. Number 5 is beans and lentils. The mechanism is a combination of plant protein, dietary fiber, and substitution. USDA MyPlate places beans, peas, and lentils in the protein foods group and notes that these plant choices provide nutrients, including fiber. Protein supports muscle maintenance. Muscle does not replace cartilage, but stronger muscles help support movement around weight-bearing joints and make exercise more achievable. Fiber matters for the broader pattern. Foods rich in fiber tend to be filling, and beans can replace part of a meal that would otherwise rely on processed meat or a large, refined grain portion. The National Institute on Aging identifies weight control when someone is affected by overweight or obesity as one way to reduce stress on joints and improve mobility. No single serving changes body weight, and nobody should be shamed about size. The point is that repeated food substitutions can make a sustainable pattern easier. There is an important honesty check here. Beans are sometimes marketed as anti-inflammatory foods. That phrase can mislead if it implies a bowl of lentils will reduce swelling in a specific arthritic joint. The sources in this brief do not establish that outcome. What they support is simpler. Beans and lentils are nutrient-dense protein foods that fit a healthy pattern. They are also inexpensive and easy to keep. Canned beans work. Rinsing them can remove some of the sodium on the surface. Dry lentils cook quickly and do not require soaking. If you are not accustomed to fiber, increase it gradually and drink according to your own medical guidance. A sudden large increase can cause discomfort. How to add them? Replace half the ground meat in one soup, chili, or pasta sauce with rinsed beans or cooked lentils. You are not adding a supplement. You are changing the structure of a familiar meal in a way that can survive a busy week. Number 4 is dark leafy greens such as spinach, kale, collards, and turnip greens. The name nutrient is vitamin K. The NIH Office of Dietary Supplements explains that vitamin K acts as a helper for enzymes involved in proteins used in blood clotting and bone metabolism. Its food table lists about 145 micrograms in 1 cup of raw spinach and about 113 micrograms in 1 cup of raw kale. Those numbers tell you these foods are concentrated sources. They do not tell you that more is always better, and they do not show that spinach treats osteoarthritis. Bone metabolism and joint cartilage are connected parts of the movement system, but they are not the same tissue and should not be spoken about as if they were. The practical mechanism is nutrient adequacy inside a whole food pattern. Greens also contribute folate, fiber, and other nutrients. A plate that regularly includes vegetables is closer to current federal dietary guidance than one built mostly from highly processed foods. Here is the safety detail that cannot be skipped. If you take warfarin, the NIH advises keeping vitamin K intake consistent. The problem is not that leafy greens are forbidden. The problem is a sudden large change that interferes with how the medicine is managed. Do not start a daily kale routine after months without greens unless the clinician managing that medicine knows about it. And do not let a supplement advertisement borrow these facts. A food source and a high-dose capsule are different exposures. Nothing in this list recommends a vitamin K supplement. How to add greens. Stir a handful of spinach into soup, eggs, beans, or a warm grain dish during the final minute of cooking. If you already eat greens, consistency matters more than chasing a larger amount. If you take warfarin, keep the pattern stable and discuss changes first. We are halfway through the list. If the distinction between a nutrient mechanism and a treatment claim is useful, subscribe and stay with this channel. That distinction protects your health and your wallet. And tell me which of the first 3 is already part of your week: berries, beans, or greens. Now we move from whole plants to a fat swap, and the word swap is the most important part. Number 3 is extra virgin olive oil. The primary mechanism is substitution of one dietary fat for another. Olive oil is rich in oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat. In 2018, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration reviewed a qualified health claim for oils high in oleic acid. The FDA described the evidence as supportive but not conclusive and tied the possible cardiovascular benefit to about 1.5 tablespoons or 20 grams used in place of fats and oils higher in saturated fat without increasing total calories. Notice every guardrail in that statement. Supportive, not conclusive. Replacement, not addition. Cardiovascular risk, not arthritis pain. The FDA statement does not say olive oil repairs cartilage, lubricates a knee, or changes a diagnosis. So, why include it in a joint-friendly pattern? Because movement depends on more than joint tissue. Cardiovascular health affects the ability to walk, cycle, swim, and do the activity that the National Institute on Aging and American College of Rheumatology place at the center of osteoarthritis care. A dietary fat used as a sensible replacement can support that broader health pattern. You may hear about a compound in extra virgin olive oil called oleocanthal. Laboratory chemistry around plant compounds can be interesting, but this episode does not have a clinical source showing that a spoonful changes osteoarthritis symptoms. We will not use a test tube mechanism as a promise to a person with knee pain. Olive oil is energy dense. Pouring it freely over the same meal is not the substitution studied in the FDA claim. Use a measured amount where it replaces butter, shortening, or a creamy dressing if that fits your food plan. How to add it. Whisk a teaspoon or tablespoon with lemon or vinegar for vegetables or beans, or use it in place of a higher saturated fat cooking fat. The useful action is the replacement. More is not automatically better. Number 2, is walnuts. The named nutrient is alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, a plant omega-3 fat. The NIH Office of Dietary Supplements lists about 2.57 grams of ALA in 1 ounce of English walnuts. For adults over 51, the same NIH table lists an adequate intake for ALA of 1.6 grams per day for men and 1.1 grams for women. Those intake numbers are based on healthy populations. They are not arthritis treatment targets. ALA is essential, meaning the body cannot make it and must obtain it from food. The body can convert some ALA into the longer-chain omega-3 fats, EPA and DHA, but that conversion is limited. This is why a walnut is not biologically identical to salmon, and why evidence about fish oil cannot be reassigned to walnuts. The rheumatoid arthritis section of the NIH fact sheet reviews trials of long-chain omega-3 supplements, not ordinary walnut servings. Even there, findings are inconsistent. Some trials reduced use of anti-inflammatory medicine, while effects on pain, swelling, or morning stiffness were not consistent. That evidence concerns rheumatoid arthritis and supplemental long-chain omega-3s. It does not establish that walnuts improve osteoarthritis. What walnuts can honestly do is provide ALA, unsaturated fat, protein, and a convenient whole food option. They can replace chips, cookies, or a processed snack. That substitution supports the broader dietary pattern without requiring a disease claim. 1 ounce is roughly a small handful. Nuts are concentrated in calories, and allergies are serious. They can also be difficult to chew for some older adults. Chopped walnuts stirred into oatmeal may be easier than eating them whole. How to add them? Measure a small handful, or about 1 ounce, and use it on oats, plain yogurt, or a salad. Choose unsalted walnuts when possible. If you have a nut allergy, skip them completely. There is no reason to force one food when the pattern offers many alternatives. Number 1 is oily fish, especially salmon, sardines, herring, mackerel, and trout. The named nutrients are EPA and DHA, the long-chain omega-3 fats. The NIH Office of Dietary Supplements lists the amounts by food and makes clear that they vary by species and feed. In 3 cooked ounces of farmed Atlantic salmon, its table lists about 1.24 grams of DHA and 0.59 grams of EPA. In 3 cooked ounces of wild Atlantic salmon, it lists about 1.22 grams of DHA and 0.35 grams of EPA. These are food composition numbers, not symptom predictions. EPA and DHA become part of cell membranes and participate in signaling pathways. That mechanism is why researchers have studied them in inflammatory conditions. But the clinical evidence boundary matters more than the attractive mechanism. Rheumatoid arthritis is the condition discussed in the NIH omega-3 review. The trials were often small and used supplements alongside standard medicines. Across studies, results were inconsistent. Some people used less anti-inflammatory medicine, while joint pain, swelling, tenderness, and morning stiffness did not improve consistently. The NIH concludes that more research is needed. Now make the second distinction. Rheumatoid arthritis is not osteoarthritis. Nothing in that evidence shows that salmon rebuilds cartilage or reverses wear-related tissue changes. Eating fish may fit a healthy dietary pattern, but it is not a substitute for exercise, weight management when appropriate, medicine, physical therapy, or an evaluation of a painful joint. Fish also requires individual judgment. People with seafood allergy must avoid it. Preparation matters. Deep frying a fish and adding a large amount of sodium changes the meal. If you have kidney disease or another condition with a prescribed eating plan, the portion and preparation belong inside that plan. How to add it? Choose a modest serving of baked, grilled, or canned oily fish in a meal where it replaces a more highly processed protein. Canned salmon or sardines can be practical and less expensive. If you do not eat fish, do not treat that as failure. The purpose of this list is a sustainable pattern, not obedience to one ingredient. Now let us put all 6 foods back into one picture, because isolated nutrients are where health claims become distorted. Berries contribute whole fruit fiber, water, and plant nutrients. Beans and lentils bring fiber and plant protein. Leafy greens supply concentrated vitamin K and other nutrients. Olive oil offers a monounsaturated fat replacement when it displaces a fat higher in saturated fat. Walnuts provide the plant omega-3 ALA. Oily fish provides the long-chain omega-3 fats EPA and DHA. That is a pattern, not a prescription. It includes fruit, vegetables, legumes, nuts, healthy fats, and protein foods, which matches the broad direction of the current dietary guidelines for Americans. What do these foods have in common? They can replace something. Berries can replace a refined dessert. Beans can replace part of a processed meat meal. Greens can replace a vegetable-free side. Olive oil can replace a fat higher in saturated fat. Walnuts can replace a highly processed snack. Fish can replace a more processed protein. Substitution is more honest than addition. If 6 new foods are simply piled onto an unchanged week, the pattern may not improve. If they displace foods you intended to eat less often, the structure of the week changes. Now name what this pattern cannot do. It cannot regrow cartilage. It cannot diagnose rheumatoid arthritis, gout, or osteoarthritis. It cannot tell whether a swollen knee contains an injury, infection, crystals, or inflammatory disease. It cannot replace the medicines or therapy prescribed for you. It cannot guarantee less pain. The strongest joint-specific actions in the sources are not foods. The National Institute on Aging describes a safe, well-rounded exercise program as a way to reduce pain and stiffness and increase flexibility, strength, and endurance. It identifies weight control, when relevant, as a way to reduce stress on joints and improve mobility. The American College of Rheumatology also centers exercise and individualized care. That does not make food irrelevant. It puts food in its proper place. A nourishing pattern can support muscle, energy, cardiovascular health, and a body weight that is appropriate for you. Those factors can make movement more possible. Movement then supports function around the joint. The relationship is indirect and practical, not magical. Think of the 6 as a kitchen framework. Keep frozen berries and greens available. Put beans or lentils into one familiar meal. Use a measured amount of olive oil as a replacement. Portion walnuts rather than eating from the bag. Plan oily fish if it fits your preferences and medical needs. Do not try all 6 tomorrow. Choose one substitution that can last for a month. A pattern becomes useful through repetition, not intensity. Your version of the pattern may look different. Budget, culture, appetite, chewing difficulty, access to a kitchen, allergies, and prescribed restrictions all matter. Frozen produce, canned beans, and canned fish can be as practical as fresh ingredients. The goal is not to build a perfect photograph of a meal. It is to make one evidence-bound choice easier to repeat without turning food into a test of character. Food is only one part of the closer. The next steps are more important. First, identify the joint problem accurately. Osteoarthritis usually develops gradually, but pain can have many causes. Rheumatoid arthritis, gout, injuries, infections, tendon problems, and referred pain require different care. A video cannot examine a joint, test strength, review an X-ray, or look at your medicines. Second, build movement with guidance appropriate to your condition. The National Institute on Aging lists stretching, balance work, walking, cycling, swimming, and Tai Chi as examples of low-impact activity. That list is not a command to start everything at once. If you have severe pain, a recent fall, heart or lung limits, or have been inactive, ask for a plan you can begin safely. Strength matters because muscles share the work of movement. Range of motion matters because avoiding movement completely can lead to more stiffness. Rest has a place after injury or during a flare, but permanent avoidance is not a full management plan. A physical therapist can help translate general exercise advice into movements for your joint and your current ability. Third, use weight conversations carefully. If your clinician says weight reduction would reduce stress on a knee or hip, ask for a realistic pace and support. Weight is not a moral score, and pain can make activity and cooking harder. Shame is not a treatment. Small food substitutions and tolerable movement are more sustainable than an extreme plan. Fourth, review medicines and supplements before adding anything sold for joints. Natural does not mean interaction-free. Warfarin users need consistent vitamin K intake. Fish oil supplements are not the same as eating fish and can interact with medicines or affect bleeding at higher doses. A bottle with a picture of a knee is still a product making a claim. It is not evidence. Finally, know the signs that should not wait. A joint that becomes suddenly hot, red, and swollen. Fever with joint pain. A major injury. A joint that looks deformed. New numbness or weakness. Or an inability to put weight through the limb needs prompt medical attention. Do not answer those signs with a grocery list. For gradual stiffness or pain, make an appointment and bring useful information. When it began, which movements change it, whether morning stiffness is brief or prolonged, whether swelling appears, what medicines you take, and what you have already tried. Clear observations help a clinician decide what needs examination or testing. Joint pain can quietly shrink a life. First, you stop taking the long route through the store. Then you avoid the stairs. Then you say no to an outing before anyone has asked whether the plan could be changed. The goal is not to promise that 6 foods restore the body you had at 40. The goal is to protect the choices still available now. 1 nourishing substitution, 1 safe movement plan, 1 accurate conversation about the joint that limits you most. Share this with someone who has been offered a miracle food when what they needed was a clear boundary between nutrition and treatment. One last safety reminder. If you have diagnosed arthritis, gout, kidney disease, a food allergy, take warfarin, or follow a prescribed diet, make changes with your own care team. Sudden heat, swelling, fever, injury, deformity, numbness, weakness, or inability to bear weight needs assessment. Nothing in this video diagnoses a joint condition or replaces treatment chosen for your history. The code on your screen opens the 90-year blueprint, the free guide mentioned earlier. Scan it or use the link in the description and keep only the ideas that fit the guidance you already follow. Subscribe for careful explanations that separate a useful food mechanism from a medical promise. And tell me in the comments which one realistic substitution you will try first: berries, beans, greens, olive oil, walnuts, or oily fish. Choose one, make it repeatable, and take good care of yourself.